You watch a sad movie and feel nothing. Good news arrives and you feel nothing. Someone hurts you and you feel nothing. You're not depressed exactly. You're just empty. Like someone turned down the volume on your emotions until everything became background noise. Rumi discovered why this happens, and more importantly, how to feel alive again. Emotional numbness is different from depression. Depression feels heavy, like you're carrying weight. Numbness feels like floating in nothing, like you're watching your life through glass. You can see things happening, but you can't quite touch them. Joy doesn't reach you. Pain doesn't penetrate. Everything exists at a distance. Rumi spent years studying people who had lost their emotional range, who moved through life mechanically, performing their roles without actually inhabiting them. He noticed this wasn't random. It followed a pattern. These were people who had felt too much, been hurt too deeply, and somewhere along the way decided that not feeling was safer than feeling. The numbness isn't the problem. It's the solution your mind created to a problem it couldn't solve any other way. At some point, the intensity of your emotions became overwhelming. Maybe it was grief you couldn't process, fear you couldn't escape, or pain you couldn't bear. Your nervous system did what it was designed to do. It protected you by turning everything down. Think of it like a circuit breaker. When too much electricity flows through a system, the breaker trips to prevent damage. Your emotional circuitry works the same way. When the intensity became too much, your system shut down to protect itself. The problem is that, unlike a circuit breaker, you can't just flip a switch to turn it back on. Rumi observed that emotional numbness usually doesn't happen overnight. It's gradual. You start by numbing one feeling you don't want to experience. Maybe you learned to suppress anger because expressing it wasn't safe. Or you buried grief because there was no space to process it. Or you pushed down fear because you had to keep functioning. But here's what your mind doesn't tell you. You can't selectively numb emotions. When you shut down one feeling, you shut down all of them. It's like turning down the volume on your entire emotional life. You might successfully avoid pain, but you also lose access to joy. You might protect yourself from sadness, but you also can't feel excitement. The numbness doesn't discriminate. This is why people who feel nothing often describe their life as gray. Not terrible, not wonderful, just a flat line of existence where nothing really matters because nothing really registers. They go through the motions: work, eat, sleep, repeat. But there's no aliveness in any of it. They're surviving, but not living. Rumi discovered that people in this state often don't even recognize it as a problem at first. They think they've just matured, become more rational, less dramatic. They mistake emotional numbness for emotional stability. They confuse being shut down with being calm. But these aren't the same thing at all. True emotional health isn't the absence of strong feelings. It's the ability to feel deeply without being overwhelmed, to experience the full range of human emotion without losing yourself in any of them. Numbness isn't peace. It's paralysis. The cure isn't simple because the numbness served a purpose. Your system shut down for a reason, and it won't turn back on until it feels safe to do so. This means you can't just decide to start feeling again. You have to understand what made you shut down in the first place, and then slowly teach your nervous system that it's safe to open up again. Rumi taught that the first step is recognizing you're numb. This might seem obvious, but many people have been emotionally shut down for so long that they've forgotten what feeling actually feels like. They think their current state is normal. They don't realize they've been living in a protective fog. Ask yourself, when was the last time something moved you to tears? When did you last laugh so hard you couldn't breathe? When did you feel angry enough to express it? When were you excited enough about something that you couldn't sleep? If you can't remember recent examples, you're probably more numb than you realize. The second step is understanding that numbness isn't weakness. It's not a character flaw or a sign that something is fundamentally broken in you. It's your mind's attempt to protect you from pain it didn't know how to process. The numbness was once a survival strategy, and it worked. The problem is that you're still using a strategy designed for crisis, even though the crisis has passed. Rumi observed that emotional numbness often persists because people are afraid of what they'll feel if they let themselves feel again. They know that beneath the numbness is everything they've been avoiding. Grief they never processed, anger they never expressed, fear they never acknowledged, pain they never allowed themselves to experience. Opening up emotionally means finally facing all of that. And yes, it's scary. Yes, it might be overwhelming. But Rumi discovered something crucial. The anticipation of feeling is usually worse than the actual feeling. What you're imagining beneath your numbness is probably more terrifying than what's actually there. Here's what Rumi taught about beginning to feel again. You can't force it. You can't wake up one day and decide to feel everything all at once. That's how you got numb in the first place. Instead, you have to start small, creating tiny cracks in the protective shell you've built. Start by paying attention to physical sensations. Numbness often begins in the body before it reaches the emotions. Notice if your chest feels tight or open. Pay attention to tension in your shoulders, your jaw, your stomach. These physical sensations are the language your emotions speak when they can't reach your conscious awareness. Rumi also taught the practice of intentional exposure to things that typically evoke emotion. Not to force yourself to feel, but to give yourself permission to feel if something arises. Watch a movie that would normally make you cry. Listen to music that once moved you. Spend time in nature. Create opportunities for emotion without demanding that it appears. Many people make the mistake of trying to think their way out of numbness. They analyze why they're numb, what caused it, what it means. But emotional numbness can't be solved intellectually. It's not a thought problem. It's a nervous system problem. You can't think your way into feeling again. You have to feel your way there. This means being willing to sit with discomfort. When you start to thaw emotionally, the first thing you'll probably feel is anxiety or agitation. This is normal. Your system is recalibrating. It's been set to off for so long that on feels strange and overwhelming. Don't interpret this discomfort as a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that something is finally starting to move. Rumi warned that the path back to emotional aliveness isn't linear. Some days you'll feel more than others. Some moments you'll have access to emotions, and other times you'll feel completely shut down again. This isn't failure. It's part of the process. Your nervous system is learning to trust that it's safe to feel, and that takes time. One of the most important things Rumi taught is that you need safety to feel. If your current life circumstances are genuinely overwhelming or unsafe, your system won't allow you to feel fully because it's still in protective mode. Sometimes emotional numbness persists not because you can't heal, but because your environment isn't conducive to healing. This might mean you need to make changes in your life before you can fully thaw emotionally. Maybe certain relationships need boundaries. Maybe your work situation needs adjustment. Maybe your daily routine needs restructuring to include more rest, more support, more space to process. Healing doesn't happen in the same environment that required you to numb yourself in the first place. Rumi also emphasized the importance of not rushing the process. Western culture tells us that healing should be fast, that we should be able to fix ourselves quickly and move on. But emotional numbness that took years to develop won't dissolve in a few weeks. Be patient with yourself. Healing happens in layers, not all at once. As you begin to feel again, you might notice that emotions come in unexpected ways. You might cry at something that seems silly. You might feel angry about something small. You might experience joy in a moment that seems ordinary. This is all normal. Your emotional system is recalibrating, and it might be a bit unpredictable at first. Some people find that professional support is helpful during this process. A therapist who understands trauma and nervous system healing can provide guidance and safety as you navigate the return to emotional aliveness. There's no shame in seeking help. In fact, Rumi believed that healing happens faster in connection with others than in isolation. Here's something important Rumi understood. Emotional numbness often lifts not through direct effort, but through engagement with life. When you start doing things that matter to you, when you pursue activities that align with your values, when you connect authentically with people who see you, emotions naturally begin to return. The numbness persists partly because your life has become so small, so protected, so controlled that there's nothing substantial enough to pierce through it. You've eliminated risk, but you've also eliminated aliveness. To feel again, you might need to take chances, try new things, allow yourself to be seen, engage with life in ways that feel slightly uncomfortable. This doesn't mean being reckless. It means gradually expanding your comfort zone, allowing yourself to care about things, even though caring makes you vulnerable. Letting yourself want things even though wanting opens you to disappointment. Emotional aliveness requires vulnerability, and vulnerability requires courage. Rumi taught that the opposite of emotional numbness isn't constant, intense feeling. It's presence. It's the ability to be with whatever emotion arises without running from it, without drowning in it, without shutting it down. It's emotional flexibility, the capacity to feel fully and then return to center. If you're struggling with emotional numbness, know that you're not broken. You're not defective. You're not permanently damaged. You're a human being whose nervous system did exactly what it was designed to do under circumstances that were genuinely difficult. The numbness was once protection. Now it's time to learn that you don't need that much protection anymore. Start small. Notice one thing today. Feel one sensation. Allow one moment of genuine presence. Don't demand transformation. Just create a tiny crack in the wall. Over time, those cracks widen. Light gets in. Feeling returns. Not all at once, but gradually, like spring thawing frozen ground. Rumi believed that emotional aliveness is your birthright. You weren't meant to live in the gray zone, going through the motions of existence without ever really touching life. You were meant to feel deeply, to be moved by beauty, to respond to pain, to experience the full spectrum of what it means to be human. The path back to feeling might be uncomfortable, but the alternative, staying numb for the rest of your life, is far worse. Every day you remain shut down is a day you're not fully alive. And life is too short and too precious to spend it protected from your own experience.